Now, sir, talking about the focus being on sectors and stocks, one of the sectors that perhaps there was some negative bit of news flow on in Friday's session was the banking and the financial pack, where RBI has made the norms stricter for unsecured lending. What kind of overall impact on the profitability of banks will it be? Because from what I understand, they'll have to increase their provisioning.
Suyash, to be very honest, I've heard into the comments from some of the top managements of banks and NBFCs
Hmm.
over the weekend from Friday since we got to know about it. And let me tell you this very frankly, Suyash.
Hmm.
I think it was need of the hour. The kind of whip that has been cracked by the RBI on unsecured loans. I don't know how many calls or SMSs or emails you must be getting, but I have got plenty of such, unwarranted, uh, unpleasant calls, whether you want a loan or whether you have a car on which you want a loan, whether
Hmm.
you want an education loan, you want a, extended credit limits on your credit card. To that extent, let me go on record. I got a message on my personal phone saying that a card has been issued to you, which did
Hmm.
not, that cell number did not belong to me. The name was of some other person. And the lethargic approach of that bank is, and let me tell you, it is one of the leading private sector banks,
Hmm.
that they have not even bothered to verify, even after me telling them that, listen, I have not applied for any credit card and I've got this message and you have issued saying that your application is under process, but the information that gentleman has given to you is wrong. It is my cell phone number and I have
Hmm.
not approached. So you can understand the severity and since kind of approach that the RBI is taking is to possibly control.
Hmm.
A lot of things were going out of hand, and unfortunate part is that if it goes out of hand, then it has a domino reaction, chain reaction, which leads to a very complex situation, and to get hands and control on that situation becomes very difficult.
Hmm.
2020, Suyash, if I'm not mistaken, 125% was there in terms of risk cover.
Hmm.
It was brought down to 100 now, because, and RBI had also warned the banks and NBFCs way back that, listen, if you don't get your acts right, we'll have to act on this. And they've done that. And
Hmm.
I'm glad that this action is taken, because it will possibly protect the unforeseen, unpleasant situation which it would have created. Like
Hmm.
I gave you my example. So I think it is good. It will bring in discipline and it will bring in clarity.
And what about the question about the profitability? Some of these banks have a high retail exposure. Do you think their perhaps profitability would be significantly impacted?
I don't think so, to be very
Hmm.
honest. And okay, to give you a clear cut view on the banking and NBFC post this step by the RBI, we remain optimistic on strong banks, strong NBFCs, whether it is private banks, whether it is public sector banks. We are quite optimistic.
Hmm.
And credit growth is not only going to come from the unsecured category, but also from the secured corporate side I'm talking about.
Hmm.
And you will have opportunity. I mean, margins may get impacted for those who have over leveraged, Suyash,
Hmm.
and not bothered about uh, risk profiling your customer. Whether the customer, after giving the loan, has the ability and strength to give you your principal and and interest in installments or EMI form. So I believe it's an opportunity from a long-term point of view. We've
Hmm.
seen this correction on fallback of this news flow,
Hmm.
but long-term, strong NBFCs, banks, I don't think their margins would get impacted that seriously that will call for downgrade or a re-rating downwards.
Hmm. So, but on Friday we saw across the board sort of correction, whereas Axis Bank, stocks like Axis Bank corrected by about 3%. HDFC Bank also came under fair bit of pressure. For those stocks, which at least from hearing from experts, the valuations are looking attractive. Is this an opportunity to perhaps enter these stocks?
So, large cap private sector banks, when let's talk in terms of earnings and performance over the last 5 years or maybe more. And
Hmm.
you have witnessed, I have witnessed that public sector banks have outperformed, beg your pardon, private sector banks have outperformed public sector banks.
Hmm.
Now, within this time, post the changes, the mergers, the strength and the health of the public sector banks have improved. and hence we have seen the kind of performance. To answer your question, as far as Axis or HDFC or the ICICI banks of the world is concerned,
Hmm.
they remain on our fundamental coverage on the positive side. And our sense is that this is not the only time that you should buy. I think
Right.
overall, even if you get a correction because of local or global events,
Hmm.
geopolitical situation, from a long-term point of view, I would advise to do a SIP in all these big private sector banks from a long-term point of view.